Hello everyone and welcome to our virtual event for Amnesty International's Children Committee. We are very lucky to have our guest speaker today, Roxana ROBIN. She gave a conference on microcredit at the United Nations in 2016. She won a Peace Prize from YMCA, and she's the founder of two nonprofit organizations, one in France and another in Canada. She has been working with cooperative foundations for over 20 years. Thank you so much for joining us today, Roxana, to talk about your work battling child trafficking around the world.
I founded the organization 20 years ago. Actually, this year is our 20th anniversary. And I founded the organization in Montreal, in Canada, in Quebec, because at that time, that's where I used to live. And 3 years ago, I moved to France. So now I live in France, and I started the organization also in France. So we have two separate organizations, one in France, one in Canada, but with the same mission and the same name. And the mission is really to help children who are exploited and their family. And we have projects in India, in Thailand, and also in Haiti. So just let me talk to you about the worst form of child exploitation. I know you're gonna watch something later on that will talk about the textile industry, so I won't talk about it. But just to know that according to the ILO, the International Labor Work, it's we have 218 million of children working now who are under exploitation. 60% of them works in the agricultural sector. So we found a lot of children in the agricultural sector. So all the tea we drink, the coffee we drink, the chocolate that we eat, the rice, everything has been picked up by children. And it's very, very difficult. You know, in those countries, it's really hot. It's about 42 degrees. And it's very dangerous for the children. Another sector where we find a lot of children working is in the mining industry. So the gold mine, the diamond mine, the cobalt mine. You know the cobalt this mineral that we find in our phone and in our computer? Well, it's children working 100 miles underground with no equipment at all. And again, a lot of children are dying in this mine. Another industry, another sectors where we found a lot of children working. Actually, when we started our first project 17 years ago, we were working with fishing villages. And most of the children were working in a stone quarry, most of the boys. They had to walk 3 kilometers from their village to go up to the quarries. Then they had to carry very heavy stone on their head for like 10 hours. And again, they had to do 3 kilometers to go back to their home. And they had only one bowl of rice to eat every day. Then another sector is all the chemical industry. We rescue many girls from seafood or shrimp factories. And the girls had to clean the tanks with chemical products, but with no protection for their hands, no protection at all. And those products attacked the lungs directly. And most of the girls were dying from this pesticide. And they were forced to stay and to sleep in the factories. Another sector where we found a lot of young girls is the domestic child labor, domestic slavery. We say that it's a kind of slavery, the domestic child labor, because the girl, actually they're doing everything in the house, doing the cleaning, the cooking, taking care of the young kids, going outside, getting the water, getting outside, getting the woods for the fire. But they don't get any salary. They don't get any income, you know, and it's slavery because they really belong to the owner. So the owner can do anything they want with the girls. And another sectors, I mean, the two worst sectors that exist is the child soldier. You know, every time you see on TV a war zone, just know that there's a lot of children who are forced to be enrolled in those wars, and they are forced to kill people, and many times they're even forced to kill their own family. I mean, child soldier is really awful. And another sectors is sexual exploitation. You know, when we talk about child exploitation, we believe that it's only happening in the developed country, in poor country. Well, it's totally wrong. Because the worst form of child exploitation, which is sexual exploitation, happens in every country, even in rich country. And actually, it's one of the sectors that's just still increase year after year. You know, when we talk about child exploitation, we talk about children who work 10 to 14 hours a day, you know, with no protection at all. Children who are regularly beaten, raped, and even sometimes killed. Because even now, in the year of 2020, children are considered as merchandise. What I mean by that is that people can buy the child or steal the child and then sell it to traffickers who sell the child for child labor, sexual exploitation, domestic slavery, or even organ trafficking. So when we talk about child exploitation, it's a very heavy subject. Now I will introduce you to our project by talking to you about the 3 major reasons that explain child exploitation. The first one is poverty. The poverty of the parents, obviously, but the poverty of the community. We have to understand, even if the child works 10 to 14 hours in the factories and make only $1 or €1 a day, that money is very important for the family. So if you take away the child from his work and send him to school, and then you believe you did a good job, well, it's wrong. Because what's going to happen is that the child will feel so guilty for not being able to provide any support for his family that he will stop going to school and he will go back to work. Or what can happen also is that the younger sisters or younger brother will be sent to work to replace the child income. So when we work against child exploitation, it's very important to work against poverty and to help the family to increase their income. And that's what we do in our organization by microcredit. What we found in India and that we find in many countries is what we call debt bondage. So debt bondage is parents who borrow money to a loan sharks because they just need to survive, you know. But the interest rates of this loan are very high. We talk about between 30 to 50% of interest. So the parents are never able to repay the debt, but they are forced to send their child to work for the loan sharks. And when they died, the loan goes directly to the child. So debt bondage is a vicious circle that never ends. And just to note that most of the parents we've been working with who are coming from fishing villages, they borrow money for food, but they borrow 80% of the parents borrow money for health problem. You know, those people start to work at a very early age, you know, a very young age. When they reach 40 years old, they are so sick, so injured, their body are damaged for good. They are not able to work anymore. So they have to send their child to work to replace their income, but also to repay the debt. So what we do in our organization is that for the parents who are not able to have a small business for microcredit, we pay for all the health problem that they have. We pay for the surgery, we pay for the medicine, we pay for the doctors, for her nurse to come once or twice in the villages, you know. And we do microcredit with those who can start their own small business. And it's kind of successful. Now, do you still hear me? Yeah, Melody is still, because my screen is totally dark. So I don't know if everyone is okay.
Yes, we can still hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The second reason why that also explains child exploitation is the lack of education. The lack of education of the child, obviously, you know, but the lack of education of the parents and of the community. So this is why it's very important to work and to educate the parents and the villages at the same time as that we send the child to school and we educate them on every human rights issues. You know, it's very difficult for parents to defend their rights when they don't know them. They don't even know that their child have rights. So it's important to educate, and we do education on different kind of issues like women rights, children's rights, gender equality, nutrition, hygiene, all the things like that that are very important. But it's very, very important when we talk about issues like early child marriage, to not just educate the women or the girls and the parents, but also to educate the community. I'll just give you one short example. When I was young, I went to work in an orphanage in India, in a very small village, and we were about 6 young Canadian girls who were volunteer. And we were very, you know, strong about women equality, women rights. And there was that young girl in the orphanage. She was about 15 or 16 years old, and she was very smart, very bright, very passionate about the studies that she was making. And one day she came to the orphanage and she cried. And she told us that her parents wanted her to marry her, and that she had to stop her study in nursing. So we spent all the night, you know, talking to her about women's rights and that she doesn't have to accept the marriage, but she can say no and blah, 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 you know, and we were really proud of ourselves. But what we did, that we completely destroyed her life. Because what happened is that we never had news about these young girls anymore. And after 1 month, I was so worried that I went to the village to meet her parents, and they were really poor, living in a hut. And the mother was crying and the father was really sad. And they explained to me that they had no choice but to banish their daughters from the village because she said no to the wedding, because the people of the village put them so much pressure, and the family of the man she was supposed to marry put so much pressure on them. They had no choice but just to banish her from her village. So her life was totally destroyed. So that's why I told you it's very important to talk to everyone at the same time, and that's what we do. You know, the president of our organization, Christine Durocher, and even myself, we used to go to India on a supervision program. And we used to cancel many weddings of our girls that we rescue. And we succeed in doing that by meeting both families, the family of the girls and the family of the boys that she's supposed to marry. And we meet both families in the village in front of the social workers, I mean, with the help of the social worker, with the help of the teacher, with the help of the village chief. And we succeed to cancel the wedding or to put the wedding later, you know, like 3 or 4 years later, or even to make the family of the man agree that the girl will maybe get married, but she will keep her study. And we succeed in doing that because we educate everyone at the same time. Everybody could discuss the issues with the same knowledge. So that's why it's very important to educate community, parents at the same time when we give education to the children. Then the third reason that explains child exploitation is the inequity between girls and boys, between women and men. You know, there's a lot of rich and educated people who still believe that it's totally normal for a girl, a young girl, to stay at home, to do the cooking, the cleaning, and everything, while the boys go to school. For them, it's totally normal to see a young girl prostitute herself to be able to support her family financially. And why they believe it's normal, even though there are educated people? Well, because we are talking only about girls and women, and they are third-class citizens. They count for nothing, you know? So gender equality is very, very important to educate men, women, community all together at the same time. You know, the boys we rescued 17 years ago, they become men now, they become adults, and we still have a relation with them. When we go and see them and meet them and see how they're doing, you know. And it's so beautiful to see the way they treated their wife and to see that the way they treat women. They really, they know that the woman and their wife have the same rights as they have. And it's so touching to see those young boys becoming father and work so hard to be able to send their daughters to school. There is no way for them that their daughters will stay at home do the cooking, and there's no way for them that their daughters will get married at an early age. What I'm trying to explain in that when we fight for women's rights, for gender equality, it's very important to include the men. We are not against men. We have to give education to the women and to the girls, but at the same time, to give education to the boys and the men, because they can become a great and powerful and generous partner when we fight for women's rights. So I'm just going to basically to make a very small summarize to everything I said. So when you want to fight child exploitation, is that what we do in our organization? That's our value, our philosophy, is to work against poverty of the community by doing microcredit, by stopping the vicious circle of debt bondage, educate the parents and the community at the same time that we educate the children, and educate everyone together on gender equality. Then, you know, the philosophy that we have, I mean, we have 3 projects in India. We started a project 17 years ago with fishing villages, and we rescue about 100 of children. And, you know, it took us about 10 to 15 years to see those children becoming adults who are completely independent financially. So our philosophy is that not to have a big project, but to have a short project on a long-term program. Make sure that each family, each child, each community become really free and financially independent. And that's our philosophy. We have 2 schools also in the slums. We give training to girls who have been a victim of sexual exploitation, you know, young girls who have been locked up in brothels in Mumbai. Young girls of 16 or 15 who are forced to receive 20 to 30 clients a day. You know, girls who have been raped more than 30 times a day. So we give them training that they're able to find a good job. And we have, as I said earlier, we have project in Thailand in 82. So I'm just going to finish my presentation by saying that we are working with local NGOs. Those are the ones who knows the community, the language, and the needs of the people we want to help. So working with local partners is very important, and they're doing amazing work. I had a chance to go to United Nations and meet different small NGOs all around the world, and those people, they put their life in danger every day to fight for human rights. So I just wanted to shine a light on them because I really think they deserve it. So thank you for listening to me. And I'm ready for the question. I'm going to shut my mouth.
Thank you so much, Roxana. That was very touching, and thank you for sharing those stories with us as well.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, of course. We have 2 questions, actually. Okay. Ivana, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation.
Hi, Ivana.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So my question is that it's been now 20 years that you've created this foundation. So did you witness some changes? Is it the exploitation more important today than it was 20 years ago? Did the methods, did the purposes change? Did the place, country, globally? What's the change globally?
Okay, that's a very good question. Actually, there's a free question in your question. So I'm just going to go one by one, okay? Yeah, we can witness some decrease in child exploitation when we go to India. India is not the same than 20 years ago, definitely not. Mostly in the informal work. I mean, we used to see children in the street, in the hotel, into the restaurant, everywhere walking. So now it has been decreased, which is good. And the number of children who are exploited in some formal sectors are been decreasing. But as I said, in the worst form of exploitation, which is domestic slavery, child soldier, and sexual exploitation, the number has been increasing. So that's why we cannot say that it's getting better. Yes, we witness a lot of changes in the community traditions. I told you that we used to go and cancel the wedding for 5 years when we started the project. But now, which is very good, we don't have to do that anymore. The social worker doesn't have to do that because it's the man, the father of the daughter who goes to another village to cancel the wedding. So it's beautiful to see how men are taking women's rights very seriously and very deeply. And actually, I just want to give you a very small example on microcredit, because I keep saying that microcredit is really helping. There is that woman, her name is Podiatelli. She's the mother of Totama, one of the girls we rescued. She was working in the stone quarries for many, many years. At the beginning, she said that she was not confident enough, that she was not smart enough to start her own business. But we really, we tried to convince her. And after 2 years, she started a very small business. She was selling vegetables. After 1 year, she had enough income that she was able to buy a very small, tiny house with only 1 room. But she was so proud to show us that house, and she could sell the vegetable from her house. So she was not living in the street anymore. And then 2 years after, she got electricity. And then with the electricity, she was able to buy a small fridge, which helped her to buy yogurt and milk. So her life just increased and increased. Her income increased and increased year after year. So yes, we do witness a lot of changes on mentality, but also on people who get, their income increasing, So yes, we can witness some beautiful changes in our work. And that's why when we do child exploitation, when we work against child exploitation, we don't have to look at the big picture, because the big picture is so depressing, and you lose your faith. you have to look at each individuals that you are helping. And yes, those have individuals, their life really change. So I hope I answer your questions.
You know, migration, is there anything that we can do to help other than like just being more aware?
Well, there's a lot of NGOs working with them. So I think the best way will be to support those NGOs by getting involved or getting them fund, because they're doing an amazing work there in the refugees camp. So I think just by getting involved in those NGOs who are really, I know that, I don't know the name in English, but I know that Médecins Sans Frontières,
It's
the Red
Doctors Without
Cross,
Borders.
Doctor Without Borders, the Red Cross also. We have Handicap. I know that Handicap International is also working. So yes, you can really support those NGOs because they really need support. Yeah, and just by, I think what you guys can do also is just to make awareness on these issues, because most of the people don't know that. They don't know that. So just organizing some kind of event when you guys talk about that, and educate people about that, because most of people don't know their conditions. They don't know the condition at the camp refugees, and they don't know what they're going through, So.
Yeah, we actually did an event a couple months ago where we talked about refugees and their rights, and then we had these virtual goggles, and there's actually this UN film called Clouds Over Sidra, and you follow. Oh yeah, it's a really nice virtual reality film where it takes you in a refugee camp in Jordan, a Syrian refugee camp. And so Sidra, which is a young 12-year-old girl, she takes you through the refugee camp, and it's very immersive. It's a really interesting perspective because you get to actually see kind of
what is inside, what is
really
exactly inside.
How they're cooking their meals, where they're sleeping, their family, and you get the sensation of the uneasiness and stress, the sadness. It's a good film as well. I recommend.
And it's important to know that those people live in fear. They have nothing. They're poor. They have nothing, but they also live in fear, and that changes a lot of things when you want to help them.
That's true. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, Roxana, thank you for, first of all, having us, for your presentation. It was very insightful. I had a question about child exploitation in the sex industry. For those the people who groom those girls, most of the time brainwash their minds. If you come in contact with children who have been raped by those pimps, so to say, what do you approach that?
Well, actually, a sexual exploitation is one of the subjects that I give conference on this subject only, because there's a lot of things to say. But yes, you're right. There's a lot of ways of getting the girls into sexual exploitation. Some girls have been just steal from their village. But yes, we, in Canada, I used to live in Canada for many years. And there's a lot of girls who have been victims of sexual exploitation. And the way they become exploited is exactly the way you said, is that they fall in love with a man, and the man just give them a lot of gifts at the beginning, and he's really nice, very generous and everything. And most of the girls usually don't have self-confidence. They don't really believe in themselves, and they are so in love with the men that when the guys say, "Oh, I need to borrow some money, I don't have any money anymore, can you just help me, can you just take one client, just one today," and then the girl accepts because she's totally in love, and then it grows, and then she gets raped by 10 men, you know, and then film that, and they scare the girls and say, you know, if you don't prostitute yourself, we're gonna put this video online and your family, your parents will know about that. Or they even scare the girls by saying, you know, we're gonna kill your brother, we're gonna kill your mother. So there's a really different risk of getting the girls into sexual exploitation. And that's why it's very important to educate the girls everywhere in the world, even in rich community, because we believe that most of the girls comes from very poor background, you know, but it's not true at all. You know, we find girls from rich family who fall into sexual exploitation because they just follow a man that they love, you know. So it's very important to educate the girls of what may happen. And we do that in schools. Most of the time we go in schools and we educate the girls and the boys in a high school. And sometimes we even talk about sexual exploitation in primary school also. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks.